Alright, the Thunder controlled this game from start to finish, and a lot of that stemmed from their defensive game plan against the Nug stars, especially Yoke, because they weren't giving him any scoring opportunities, so he was forced into passing the entire night. On his post touches, they were loading up to shade his angles, so he was seeing help up top and baseline, and it was somewhat the same on his elbow touches. But even though he couldn't score, at least the others on the Nugs could, because they were able to capitalize on his gravity, and he was still providing the hub for them, so they were still able to use him as the screener. That allowed the Nugs to run their usual actions, from the splits, to the DHOs, to the SNRs, and to the zips or backsides, and a lot of those were for Maul, because against him, the Thunder were mixing up their coverages in his screening actions, so depending on the big, he had some more scoring opportunities than Yoke. Whenever it was Hart, he was seeing a drop, then whenever it was Shet, he was seeing a switch, then whenever it was J. Will, he was seeing a show, and early on, he was able to score, because he was either exploiting the space against Hart or exploiting Shet on the switch. At times, Hart would just vacate instead of linger on his help, because he was that concerned with Yoke's pop, and there was even an instance where J. Will did the same thing, so the Thunder must have put an emphasis not to give Yoke the roll or pop. But after those early points, Maul really struggled to score, because first, the Thunder were more willing to have Hart show or switch, and on his switches, they would just have Dort or Queso front Yoke, while Shet pulled over as the low man, so they were even able to scram the mismatch at times. Then second, they were usually playing Shet or J. Will instead of Hart, and then third, they always had help off Maul's screens, so whenever he turned the corner, he was being forced to pass, because he wasn't going to get a clean look. But even though he couldn't score, at least the others on the Nugs could, because he was able to burn J. Will in his screening actions, so same as Yoke, he was generating open looks for them to capitalize on his gravity, and a lot of his dimes were to P-Watt. He's continuing to play with a lot of confidence, so off the rock, he's still shot ready, and on the rock, he's still getting some opportunities to handle it, because even with Yo coming back, he's still being trusted as a ball handler at times. Against him, the Thunder were having their base drop, so he just had to exploit that space, but even with his production, the Nugs still didn't have enough, because they weren't getting consistent stretches of makes, and only getting 28 combined between their stars wasn't going to compensate for the Thunder's production from top to bottom. As expected, the Nugs' defensive game plan was centered around Shai, so on his ones, they were loading up to shade his angles, so he was seeing help up top and baseline, and whenever he drove baseline, they were firing, because they did not want him to get to his patented shot. But unexpectedly, they were having their bigs drop more than usual in his screening actions, and that was surprising, because Yoke is usually showing against players he doesn't want coming off clean, so that just allowed Shai to exploit that space a good amount. Whenever he turned the corner, he was able to get to his spots, and he really didn't even need a traditional SNR, because he could just get a drag from one of the Thunder's guards for a quick hunt, so he was able to attack the matchups he wanted. Whenever he beat his man off the dribble, it was just as easy to get to his spots, and once that happened, all he had to do was make the right read, because the Nugs were consistently shrinking the floor against him, so if he wasn't creating a shot for himself, then he was creating a shot for the others on the Thunder, especially Queso. Every time he caught Maul pulling over, cracking, or tagging, he found Queso on the weak side, and it only got easier as the game went on, because the Nugs' adjustments were to start outright selling to force the rock out of his hands, or to zone up more to take away his ball screens, so Queso continued to get those open looks from deep. But it wasn't just for Queso, it was for all of them, and when they all shoot that well, it really didn't matter what the Nugs did, because whenever they tried to stop Shai, they paid for it, and whenever they didn't, they still paid for it, so they were basically in a lose-lose scenario the entire night. Unfortunately, The only time they could get consistent stops was when Shai was off the floor, because without Dub running the Thunder's second unit, they couldn't get anything out of their screening actions during the non-Shai minutes, and them resorting to force-feeding Shet in the post wasn't effective at all. So fortunately, at least they were able to compensate by generating enough scoring during the Shai minutes. Just watch the tape.